senseless murders, families devastated. All of this completely preventable. The heinous crimes of illegal aliens extends beyond just breaking our laws by crossing into our country. They're responsible for the killing of tens of thousands of American citizens, while corrupt politicians stand idly by and the media remains silent. American men, women, and children left behind as collateral damage deserve more. They should never be forgotten or become faceless victims from an undefended border. They deserve more. For 10 years, the Remembrance Project has been doing just that, exposing America's stolen lives, all permanently separated from their loved ones. You can become a champion for victims and their families by joining the Remembrance Project today. Through your donations or as a volunteer, you can help spread the truth and honor Americans' stolen lives. By taking a stand today, you're standing squarely in front of the invasion that may otherwise take your loved ones tomorrow.
Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another live broadcast of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. We're not going to have Maria with us tonight. She sent me a text a while ago and has had something come up, which is going to occupy her time for a little while this evening. But we will have her back on maybe Thursday or sometime next week, or we do a pre-record either way. So we wish her the best of luck. Also, I'd like to mention that she has a home in Florida. So hopefully with this upcoming hurricane, it's not going to affect her home well, hopefully it's not going to affect anyone's home over there for that matter. One of our moderators, Doc, is also, he's just north of the Tampa area. And so we're concerned about what's going to happen there with him as well. But I do want to read for you something that Maria sent me. It is a press release from the Remembrance Project. And it states, the Remembrance Project invites the public to join in recognizing the Remembrance Month for Americans killed by illegal aliens in their local communities during the month of October. The public is encouraged to be a strong voice in honoring and remembering their fellow Americans and remind legislators to not dismiss the high cost of illegal immigration. The Stolen Lives Quilt Memorial banners are available on the Remembrance Project's website for download and sharing on social media, with local media, and with all official elected to protect citizens. Remembrance flag is also available in helping to recognize the solemn month. National Director of the Remembrance Project, Maria Espinoza, stated the Remembrance Month will go a long way in giving the victims' families some measure of justice and remind the citizens that every killing is entirely preventable. Remembrance Month extends President Donald Trump's proclamation of the National Remembrance Day he signed in October of 2020 for our organization. In order to save lives and preserve America, the following must take place. Number one, mass deportation must begin immediately. Number two, no amnesty for illegal aliens. Number three, complete the border wall and repeal the ongoing invasion. Number four, encourage illegal aliens to reunite with their families in their countries of origin. And number five, stop the funds to non-governmental organizations that aid and abet illegal aliens. The Remembrance Project is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization based out of Texas and has served for 15 years as a voice for Americans who were killed by illegal aliens. God bless America. At the end of all of my programs, you hear me asking you for certain people to pray for, and one of those being angel families. So one of our guests tonight is Dan Gulvich. He is an angel parent. His son, Spencer, was sadly killed by an illegal immigrant that should not have been here, randomly for no reason whatsoever, in Texas on his way to work one day. So Dan is going to be joining us shortly, and we're going to discuss further into this issue that's happening with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the lies they're telling, and would like for you, the American public, to believe. And we're going to expose a little bit of that, because that's what's important, is that the American voter understands right from wrong, basically. Who's telling the truth and who is giving you total BS. Many of you know that I've been down on the border several times. I've done several border documentaries on it. You can see those at douglasducote.com. And we shared with you just how broken the system was. So if you haven't had the opportunity to see those, you can see them at douglasducote.com anytime you would like. You can download them as well, and you can share them with friends and family. Before we bring Dan on, I'd like to mention something that is very alarming, to say the least. And after Dan is on, I'm going to share with you just how alarming that is, above and beyond this particular information coming out of the FBI and Homeland Security tonight. Illegal immigrants with terrorism ties are expected to exploit the U.S. border as the threat environment remains high, the Department of Homeland Security warned yesterday. The agency detailed a number of warnings in its annual Homeland Threat Assessment, which took place on Wednesday, which is used to inform local, state, and federal agencies about public safety and security threats, saying, quote, the terrorism threat environment over the next year will remain high. Over the next year, we expect some individuals with terrorism ties and some criminal actors will continue their efforts to exploit migration flows and the complex border security environment to enter the United States, the assessment says. Individuals with potential terrorism connections continue to attempt to enter the homeland at both the U.S.-Mexico and U.S.-Canadian borders, and also through the immigration system, it continued. There were 172 encounters of nationals on the terrorist watch list at the border between ports of entry last fiscal year and more than 560 at the ports of entry, because they got no other way to get in. You can't take a flight into America because they're on the terrorist no-fly list. The report also laid out concerns about violence in response to the 2024 election cycle, which has already seen assassination attempts on former President Trump's life, as well as foreign violent extremists carrying out potential attacks in response to ongoing conflicts all across the Middle East. Groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda maintain the enduring intent to conduct and inspire attacks in our homeland and have leveraged the conflict in the Middle East to reaffirm this intent, the report states. Among state actors, we expect Iran to remain the primary sponsor of terrorism and continue its efforts to advance plots against individuals, including current and former U.S. officials in the United States, the assessment warned. In addition to Iran, China and Russia have increasingly used artificial intelligence to create more believable text, video, and audio to reach American audiences while hiding their origins, the report stated. The terror watch list, called the Terrorist Screening Data Set, includes unknown or suspected terrorists as well as additional individuals believed to pose a potential threat to the United States, including affiliates of individuals on the actual watch list. Despite migrant encounters dipping slightly, they are still arriving in high numbers, complicating border and immigration security. According to the threat assessment, migrant encounters along the U.S.-Canadian border continue to increase, with over 181,000 migrant encounters for fiscal year 2024 through August, compared to about 170,000 at the same time in fiscal year 2023, the report says. And so Kamala Harris is just letting everybody know that, oh, under our watch, they're down. Well, from 181,000 to 170,000, and that's something to brag about? Well, in her mind, it is. In contrast to the U.S.-Mexican border, many watchlist encounters along the U.S.-Canadian border occur at ports of entry, and the vast majority of these individuals have legal status in Canada. Encounters with migrants from the Eastern Hemisphere countries, including China, India, Russia, and Western African nations, decreased slightly in fiscal year 2024 from about 10% to 9% of overall encounters, but remain a high portion of the encounters than before fiscal year 2023, according to the report. So that is your Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, once again, letting you know what our problem is on our southern border and our northern border, for that matter, and how this current administration has allowed this to continue to grow and get worse. Sadly, not only do we have to worry now and continue to worry about innocent American citizens becoming angel families because somebody who shouldn't have been here kills one of their family members, but now we have to worry about known terrorists that are coming across our borders. And we're catching some of them, thank God. But we know it's factual, it's from the Border Patrol, it's from the FBI, that over 2 million people are classified as gotaways, meaning they came across our borders and we were not able to apprehend them because we don't have enough people and technology to do that. That's how overwhelming it has become. So we're sitting here looking at illegal immigrants throughout this country that are hell-bent on harming other people. And we're going to share that with you here shortly as we talk with Dan and we share a very, very alarming video about the current crisis and the actual numbers we will give you. And then after Dan, I'm going to share with you something out of the Justice Department today that is even more alarming, that will tie all this together. So you'll want to stay to hear that. Dan has been on the show several times before. He's a great friend of the show, and he's somebody that I'm very happy to call my friend. Dan, welcome back to the Douglas Ducote Show. We're glad you're able to be here with us tonight, brother.
Thanks for having me, Doug. I'm glad to be here.
Dan, briefly, for those that have not had the opportunity to see you before on this show, share with us. I know it's emotional, I know it's painful, but I also know that with you sharing it, it helps drive home what this is all about when they can actually see and hear somebody who's classified as an angel parent. Share with us your son and what happened.
Okay, Doug, yeah, this happened back on January 31st, 2015. My son had taken his girlfriend out for her birthday. He had to drop her off. He had to get home early because he had to get ready for the grand opening of his music store the next morning. And he pulled up to a red light in Northwest Houston. It happens to be the same neighborhood I grew up in. And a 4-time deported illegal alien that had a long, nasty rap sheet of assaults and robberies and burglaries and had done 5 years in prison for attempted murder, just randomly came up and blew my son Spencer's brains out, along with 2 other motorists he just picked out randomly, just out fun shooting. And he fortunately for us was himself taken out later on by a Harris County Sheriff's deputy when he exchanged fire. He was just on a wild killing rampage.
Wow. You know, every time I hear this story, it is it's painful, and it's what the reason why I keep talking about this immigration problem, folks, and I keep sharing this with you, is not just because I've been to the border and I've seen it myself, and I know how the news media lies, especially CNN and MSNBC, and how the Democrats lie about what's really happening down there, and what we know for a fact is being lied to us by the current administration. But what drives it home even more for me is having somebody that I call my friend, my brother, Dan, who has shared this with me many times. And every year on the anniversary of Spencer's death, Dan sends me a text message, you know, letting me know how he's feeling. And I take that personally. It pains me to know that this administration not only has not met with angel families or anyone with the Remembrance Project, but they go out of their way to avoid you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know that what you're going to say. They know that you're going to tell them flat out the factual information and share with them the pain and suffering that you have to go through. And Dan, I know that you know personally through the years you've met many of these same people that are in this group that sadly you all belong with. It's, I don't even know the words to say as far as how deep this goes, folks. You know, it's one thing, you know, I don't know what it's like to lose a kid. Okay. I have no clue. I know what it's like to lose a brother because I lost my brother, Craig Ducote. And I know what it was like, what my parents went through having to lose my brother. And I know what they still go through today. My brother died 24 years ago. It was in 2000. And still to this day, I know the pain that they went through then and still go through today. And he died of a health issue. So when I think of this situation, of what you go through, Dan, and what these other angel families go through, is just unthinkable because it could have been avoided. It never should have happened because it wasn't a health situation. They didn't have cancer. They didn't have some type of a disease that they were suffering with. You know, they were going about their everyday life as an American citizen, and somebody that should not have been in this country snuffed their life out. And that itself should be enough to bring all Americans together to support you guys. But there's only one side that does that. And that is, let's just be honest, conservatives and Republicans. Dan, have you ever had a member of Congress, and maybe you have, and if so, please let us know, that's a Democrat reach out to you about your son and what you went through?
We don't exist to them. We don't exist to them. And sadly, a significant number of Republicans, we don't exist to them either. But you're right. It's the only ones that do make an attempt to make an issue out of this is the conservatives. And, you know, conservatives are on the right side of this, but this is a problem that I think that the Americans need to understand something. You turn on the television, you see a lot of threat, you see a lot of things overseas. This threat, let me tell you, the biggest threat we face is at that border. And the Venezuelan gangs, the Mexican gangs, the cartels, Central American gangs that are coming over, they're every bit as bad as these terrorists. Little Joshua in Uruguay, the little 12-year-old girl that got raped for 2 hours and then gagged and thrown into the creek. That happened 2 miles from me. And they're not just staying in Texas anymore. They're going further into the interior. There's no escape from them. I don't care if you're in a rural area. I don't care if you're somewhere in, West Virginia, up in the mountains. They're going everywhere because this idea that there's only 10 or 12 million of them, that's just crap.
Yeah.
We're looking at 40, 50. We're looking at maybe 1/5 of our, 1/6 maybe of our population is here illegally. And
now all states are border states. This administration has shipped them
Yeah.
all over the place to
Yeah.
spread them out.
Yeah, that's true. And as Donald Trump put it, we're not getting their best and brightest. We're getting some really bad hombres. We're getting, they are releasing people out of the prisons. Like, again, my son's killer had a long, long criminal history. And, I've always said this, Doug, and you've probably heard me say this before, but I've always referred to him as just a foot soldier. The generals and commanders of this war against us, the American people, are the slime balls up in D.C.
Yeah.
Especially in the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
You have this. They're so desperate. They're willing to sell us out for power. They know that they're bringing in a new voting bloc, and that's obvious. Everybody knows this. And there is a certain, again, significant portion of the quote GOP that have to appease mega donors and cheap labor demands, and that's just figured into the business model. And but it doesn't. None of this benefits Americans. None of it. And we send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to various countries. We give hundreds of billions of dollars every year to illegal alien invaders. And we couldn't get $2 billion for a stinking wall.
Yeah.
When we get
not only a wall, but the Biden-Harris administration is going to give $750 if you apply for it and you've got no internet or phone to fucking do it because everything's been destroyed in Western North Carolina to the people that lost all their shit.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's a loan. Yeah, that's a loan. That's not. They're not giving it.
Right. They got to pay it back.
Yeah. They got to pay it back. An illegal alien invader gets that much every week. And it's just, people need to understand, if you want to keep this country, we need to focus on this problem.
Right.
Because if we don't fix this problem, nothing we do overseas is going to matter. Nothing.
You're right.
Nothing we do anywhere. We're losing our country. I mean, Doug, I walked through. I'm 61 years old, and I've lived in this area. I'm native to this area. I was born here in Houston, and I live up on the northwest side, and it's right at the outskirts of where it becomes rural. I walked through a lot of parks and a lot of just nature areas around here, and when it's a busy day and there's a lot of people, and I'm usually the only American there. I don't recognize my area anymore.
Wow.
And I feel like I'm a foreigner.
Yeah.
And this is just, of course, Texas has been inundated with this, but this isn't going to stop here. This is going to Springfield, Ohio, or
Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah, it's going everywhere. And, there's no shortage of them. And it's, this is a Category 5 illegal alien storm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You shared something with me, Dan, back a few years ago when we first met, that has stuck with me. It was a very, very powerful statement, and I will never, ever forget this. And I remember asking, what is it going to take? How do we get these Democrats to understand how important this is, instead of turning their head and looking the other way as if it doesn't exist? And you said, when it happens to one of them, when it happens to one of their family members, one of their daughters or their wives gets raped or murdered, or their kids by one of these illegal aliens, that's what it would take to get these Democrats to wake up and realize how bad this situation is. And that's probably the most powerful statement I've ever heard anybody say. And I will always remember that, because you're 100% correct. And that's sad that that's what it takes to get a member of a particular party to realize the pain and agony that so many people are going through that are American citizens that shouldn't be going through this.
Well, that's the reason I do these podcasts, and I've been outspoken about this, is I'm really trying to reach voters and people. I want to say, look at me. You don't want to join this club. It's a dark place. Every Christmas, every holiday, every birthday, there's an empty seat at that table. And it marginalizes everything about your life, and the pain never goes away. And because you're watching your government scrape the scab off the wound by exacerbating the problem constantly with the Harris-Biden border policies, which is, I like to call it the area formerly known as the U.S.-Mexican border, because it doesn't really exist anymore. And, this has been engineered. This is deliberate. It is an act of war against us. It is designed to subvert our way of life, to subvert our system. And I think we're 2 seconds before midnight here. I don't know if it isn't past midnight. I really don't know, Doug. But I do know that we need to be focused. This is our number one threat. It's not anything overseas.
Yeah.
I'm not saying those situations aren't important. I'm saying that this threat here, this what's coming over into our homeland and setting up shop, just like you said, it isn't just people from Central and South America or Mexico. There's people from all over the world. I mean, from the Middle East, from China, from places that don't like us, coming here. And
well, you just now comparing it to the doomsday clock, which is basically the end of the world due to a nuclear holocaust, is spot on, because that's what we're dealing with. Which brings me to this video that I want to share with all of you, and we get Dan's feedback as well on this, Dan, on your feelings. I get so many comments through emails, from the left after I do shows talking about the border, talking about saying that I make these numbers up, that it's not real, that it's all BS. So I want everybody to take a moment and watch this video that I'm about to share with you. It's a little longer than I wish it was, but it's important that you watch it and you listen and you see these numbers that are fixing to come across your screen, because this is what Dan and I are talking about, and it's astronomical what you're about to witness.
Enforcement confirms that more than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States. The letter here tells the tale. Hello, I'm John Roberts in Washington. You believe this, Sandra?
Which means they are here, and this is just an unbelievable development. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Good to be with you, John. This is America Reports. Let's get right to Bill Malugin. He's got this news for us. He's live out of Douglas, Arizona right now, where Vice President Kamala Harris is set to visit later this afternoon. Bill, the details of this news, what do you have?
Yeah, and Sandra, bear with me. We just got these numbers moments ago, but it's a jaw dropper to say the least. So to set the stage here, let me just explain what these numbers mean. ICE has something called a non-detained docket. Essentially what that is it means migrants who were encountered by DHS but are no longer in federal custody. So who's on this non-detained docket? It's illegal immigrants who were caught and released at the border, released with the court date years away. They're in immigration proceedings, combined with illegal immigrants who have already been ordered, deported from the country by a judge, but are still here roaming the country. So keep that in mind, this non-detained docket. According to a letter that the acting director of ICE just sent to Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, on ICE's non-detained docket, they're currently tracking 425,000 non-citizens who have been convicted of a crime. Of that number, over 13,000 non-citizens have convictions for homicide and are on the non-detained docket, meaning they're roaming the country right now. On top of that, there are another 15,811 non-citizens convicted of sexual assault who are roaming the country right now on ICE's non-detained docket. It doesn't stop there. Those are convictions. The ICE director also says there are currently just under 1,900 non-citizens on the non-detained docket who have pending homicide charges who are roaming the country, and another 4,250 non-citizens who have pending sexual assault charges who are roaming the country on the non-detained docket. So people's eyes might be glazing over right now with all the numbers we just threw at you. Just to put it in a nutshell right here, what we've learned from the acting ICE director via this letter to Congressman Tony Gonzalez is right now there are over 13,000 illegal aliens convicted of homicide who are roaming the United States right now. There are another 15,811 illegal aliens roaming the country right now who have been convicted of sexual assault, and there are even more who are facing charges for homicide and charges for sexual assault. So this just goes to show, guys, the non-detained docket has exploded under the Biden administration to over, I believe it's 7.3 million. They're anticipating it could hit 8 million by the end of the year. But looking at the numbers on this letter right here, there are currently over 600,000 non-citizens on ICE's non-detained docket who are either convicted, 600,000 non-citizens on this non-detained docket who are roaming the country right now. Of that, 425,000 have already been convicted of crimes. 222,000 are pending crimes. And again, the most serious crimes we just told you about, over 13,000 convicted of homicide, over 15,000 convicted of sexual assault. And honestly, that is not a surprise to hear, given these horrible headlines we keep seeing popping up in multiple parts of the country almost every day now of a horrible sexual assault or a murder or another violent felony committed by an illegal alien who is often caught and released from custody. And the jaw dropper here too, guys, is all these numbers we just rattled off, they don't even account for the nearly 2 million gotaways who have crossed our border under the Biden administration. Those almost 2 million gotaways, they were never encountered by DHS. They snuck in, they were never caught by Border Patrol, they were never encountered by ICE. There's no record of them, so they have nothing to do with the numbers I just rattled off to you. These are just the numbers of people that ICE has already encountered, that Border Patrol has encountered, that DHS knows who they are. And we just saw those horrible stories in Nantucket the other day. ICE ran a week-long operation in Nantucket, and in a single operation in a 48-hour span, they arrested 2 Salvadoran illegal aliens who came into the country as gotaways and were arrested for child rape on Nantucket. They got a Brazilian guy who was arrested for sexually assaulting a Nantucket resident, and then a Guatemalan guy who was previously deported who was arrested for sexually assaulting a Nantucket resident. So we keep seeing all these headlines about migrant crime popping up in different cities all over the country. This right here is the first time we have ever seen specific numbers as to who and what ICE is tracking when it comes to convicted criminals who have crossed the border at some point and are either supposed to be deported or are going through their immigration proceedings but are not in ICE custody right now and are roaming the country. So I'll ping it back to you guys, but some pretty jaw-dropping numbers that we are still going through as we speak right now.
And my apologies for that StreamYard totally screwing up that video clip, because it was perfectly fine until I put it in StreamYard. And I'm going to have to find another platform to do this show on besides StreamYard, because they're having more and more issues. I don't know if it's cyber attacks happening to their program or what, but anyhow, you get the point was made, I believe, very clearly, that this administration has allowed hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens convicted of or waiting to be sentenced of murder and rape of women and children released back into America to roam and do it again. Dan, I don't know, brother. Is that, I would imagine it's not even shocking to you anymore at this point to hear those kind of numbers.
No, it's not. I have a real foreboding about this. When right now our economy is being propped up, and I don't want to digress into that, but should we get a bump in the road economically and we fall into some serious hard times, what do you think all these impoverished illegal aliens are going to resort to? The other thing is, they're highlighting, and I'm glad they're highlighting the worst of the worst, which are the murderers and the rapists. But really, every one of them that comes over here, number one, they're indebted to the cartels.
Right.
They're indebted to the cartels. Every day they're here, they're a criminal. They're thumbing their nose at our immigration laws, and they're and they're taxing you, taking from your family. And these other ones, the ones that we're highlighting here, are riding in on their coattails. So the whole thing is bad, and it all needs to stop. It's just like Maria says, the only way I see to redeem this country from this is to, number one, seal up the border, but you have to repatriate all these invaders. They have to go.
Yeah.
And you don't be dangling the banana with things like DACA and pathway to. It all sounds good, and it certainly sounds good to these people down there thinking, if I can just make it over there, if I can just get my butt up over that border, then, I'll eventually get the pathway to citizenship. But as soon as I get there, I'm going to get all kinds of goodies. I'll get 100 times more than I would make in 1 year working down here in Venezuela.
Right.
So there's a lot of banana dangling, and it doesn't just. It's not just the government. You have all these NGOs like the Catholic Charities, and there's a Jewish organization, HIAS, and then Lutherans. It just runs across the board. All these do good church. What's one of them? Oh yeah, the immigration table, the evangelical immigration table. All these NGOs are making hundreds of millions, billions of dollars off the federal government by helping bring these people in and housing them and getting them situated and getting them actually going down to the Darien Gap and giving them maps and showing them how to, and assisting them to get here. These are religious institutions. Well, under the guise of religious institutions, they're NGOs. Yeah, and so it's just a big, it's a money thing for them, but obviously for the people at the very top of the pyramid, they already have all the money in the world. I think this is a demolition, a controlled demolition for them. They're trying to destroy the American way of life. They're trying to destroy our freedoms because that's what stands in the way from them having what they want, which is to be able to dominate everything.
Well, last year, I've had numerous members of the Border Patrol and Border Patrol Union come on and talk to my viewers. One of them last year made the comment that, it's not us in control of the border anymore. You understand that, right, Doug? And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, the cartel is in charge of our southern border.
Absolutely.
Not us.
100%.
Yeah.
But it's our political situation that's allowed it. I mean, because if we wanted to, if we had the will in the District of DC, sorry, if we had the will to do that, we could do it relatively quickly. But there isn't any will. It is treasonous, and basically there's an alliance between these cartels and the people in Washington, and they've just said, "Hey, you got the border; it's yours. You control it."
Yeah.
That's and it starts right at the top with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. If you think they're actually at the top. I think they just read scripts. I don't think they're at the top of anything. I think
they're reading some very messed up scripts. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, well, they put them in there because they're malleable. I mean, there's not. Right. They're just employees. The people that really run the show, that are invested in bringing this country down and turning it into something else other than a representative republic.
Yeah.
Are behind this, and we can get into that. It gets pretty deep, but that's what's happening, and we're under attack. It's a war. It's a war on American people, the American people. It's just that simple. It's not an overseas war. It is kinetic. I got a dead son to prove it. There's thousands of dead men. All you have to do is go look on the Remembrance Project, the Stolen Lives Quilt, and there's your war memorial. And it's only going to get a lot worse because there's a whole lot more coming over now than there was even at the time when my son was murdered. It's just, it's tripled, quadrupled.
Yeah.
And it's only getting worse. And we're going to lose the country soon if we don't stop focusing on everything else and start focusing on this problem.
Yeah. The whole Make America Great Again concept really is saving this country from where it's headed. And so many on the left and the Democrats can't, I don't know if it's they don't have the intelligence to understand this, or if they just are so into everything but reality that it's not on their radar. But it is a very, very sad state of affairs. And folks, the election's right around the corner. And I'm here to tell you, I'll keep doing this show regardless of who wins in November. But if it happens to be Kamala Harris, you will hear me time and time again for 4 years telling you this is what I told you was going to happen.
Yeah. And it might be. I don't know. People say, "What do you think?" I don't know. I mean, I think that Trump has to have about a 10% lead over her to overcome the cheat factor.
Right. Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And
right now he doesn't.
If people think that the Democrats don't cheat, you're an idiot. They're just idiots. It's so ridiculous. They don't even really try to hide it that much. And
I agree.
they have control of the DOJ and the FBI and all the judges. And so you're trying to get Bonnie to prosecute Clyde.
Right.
Because they'll always come back and say, well, the DNA, where's the DOJ? Where, no charges are being filed. Of course, no charges are being filed. No one's investigating it because they control the investigators.
Yeah. Yeah.
They control the apparatus.
Anybody that had their eyes open for the past, well, not just 3.5 years, but even the 4 years that Trump was the president, if you paid any attention to the hearings, tuning into C-SPAN, watching the investigations, watching the court cases, you would know 100%.
Yeah,
exactly.
And if he does get back in, man, he needs to clean house with the DOJ and some of these law, Health and Human or DHS and FBI, all of it. He needs to clean house. He needs to go through there and, don't hire a bunch of swamp rats again.
Right. Yeah.
You're gonna have to be an asshole.
Right.
It's just that simple. You're gonna have to piss a lot of people off.
Right.
And you're probably gonna have to up your security because there's a lot of
Well, if he makes it to November's election, it'd be a miracle at the rate they're going, because I personally believe it's an inside job and they want him dead.
Oh yeah, these people, again, they are the end of the line. They are the people that want to investigate the people that want to assassinate him.
Right.
So why does anybody think the emperor has no clothes here? I mean,
right.
It's just we're at the end of it. There's nobody over them. There's no oversight here. They are the oversight, and they control the DOJ. They control all the agencies that would be assigned to get into the bottom of this.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous.
In-house.
Yeah, Americans need to get this mindset. Hey, you need to understand your biggest enemy. I'll even say this. Again, the people coming over the border, they're a big enemy, and that's the biggest problem, but they're just the foot soldiers. Your biggest enemy is in Washington, D.C.
100% agree. Yes.
That's your biggest threat. It's not in China. It's not in Russia. It's not in Iran. It's not in Lebanon. It's not in any of these places. It's not in North Korea. It's in your own federal national capital, D.C., the District of Criminals, because it's bought out, and these people are sold out. It's a cabal. It's a mafia.
It goes back to the old saying, I love my country, I fear my government. And I trust this government zero.
Yeah.
Because I've served in it, I've lived in it, I've watched what they've done to not just myself, but other veterans and other law enforcement officers, or anybody that attempted to even think about questioning the narrative. And
do they put veterans up in 4-star hotels, hand them out cash? I mean, do they do that? No.
Absolutely sickening. Dan, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I sure do appreciate it. It's always a blessing to have you on the show. Brother, we love you, man. And I'm so honored that you're my friend. And I say that deeply in my heart.
I'm very much appreciative of the work you do, and you've been a consistent voice on this. And you reach a lot of people, and that you're, like I've always told you, Doug, you're still a soldier. You're just a soldier a different way now, but you're still in the battle, and you're making a big difference, and it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to all the other Angel families. Trust me.
Well, thank you, Dan, and God bless each and every one of you Angel family people. We love you, and you're always welcome on this show.
I so appreciate you having me tonight.
All righty. Take care, brother.
Take care.
And in closing tonight, I want to share with you, to tie this all in together, something that's out of the Justice Department right now that many of you may have not heard before, and you're hearing it for the very first time. And it should shock the living hell out of you. If it doesn't, well, A, you're not an American, and B, you're probably here because you want to do us harm. The Justice Department said today that an Afghan citizen living in Oklahoma that Biden-Harris allowed into America unvetted has been charged with plotting a terrorist attack on this upcoming election day on behalf of the Islamic State, in which he and an underage co-conspirator expected to die as martyrs. His name is Nasser Ahmad Tawadi. He's 27 years old, obtained firearms and ammunition to conduct a violent terrorist attack on U.S. soil, as well as taking a number of steps to prepare for the plot. He entered the United States on September 9th, 2021, weeks after the Biden-Harris failed withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan on a special immigrant visa, and is currently on parole status pending adjudication of his immigration proceedings. You may recall I spoke about just this type of scenario many times after that debacle that we watched happen in Afghanistan. And I told you it's only a matter of time before one of these Afghans that they're allowing in here is a terrorist, because they're not properly vetting them. And I shared with you the statistics, and I shared with you what the FBI has been saying and the CIA has been saying. And the Democrats, for whatever reason, don't listen. He was arrested yesterday and is charged with conspiring and attempting to provide material support to ISIS and receiving a firearm to be used to commit a felony or a federal crime of terrorism. He appeared in an Oklahoma federal courthouse today. As charged, the Justice Department was able to intervene before he was able to do this plot that he had. He had acquired semi-automatic weapons that he was going to use to commit a violent attack in the name of ISIS on Election Day here in America. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a statement, ahead of the planned attack, he allegedly liquidated his family's assets, resettled his family members from America back to overseas, acquired an AK-47 rifle and ammunition, and has seized communications, emails, and cell phones. He indicated that his attack was planned to target large gatherings of people on Election Day in America, during which he and the juvenile were expected to die as martyrs. This defendant, motivated by ISIS, conspired to commit a violent attack on Election Day here in our homeland, said FBI Director Christopher Wray. I'm proud of the men and women of the FBI who uncovered and stopped this plot before anyone was harmed. Terrorism is still the FBI's #1 priority, and we will use every resource to protect the American people. Federal prosecutors said he communicated with someone who facilitated the recruitment, training, and indoctrination of those who expressed interest in terrorist activities here in America in support of ISIS. During a search of his phone and other electronic devices, he was seen on a video recording that took place on July 20th, reading to children from texts that describe the rewards that martyrs receive in the afterlife, according to the FBI. He also saved ISIS propaganda on his iCloud and participated in pro-ISIS Telegram groups, as well as contributing to a charity which allegedly funneled money to ISIS right here in America. While liquidating their family assets, he and the underage co-conspirator advertised the sale of the family's personal property on Facebook. A confidential informant working with the FBI inquired if a computer that he had for sale was still for sale, claiming they needed it for a gun business. That led him and the juvenile to meeting with the informant and others working for the FBI in a rural location to test firearms. During the meeting, he expressed interest in purchasing 2 AK-47 rifles that would be fully automatic, magazines, and ammunition. Now, if that's not bad enough, the biggest disgrace about this, he will only face 35 years in prison if he's convicted, which means if he was given the maximum sentence of 35 years, which he could get way less, but let's say he got the maximum sentence of 35 years, he'd be released from jail at the age of 62. Guess what? I'm 62. This should be alarming to everyone in this country. But sadly, it's not alarming to Democrats. It's not alarming to liberals. And sadly, we're watching currently happening right now in America, all across liberal college campuses, support for Hamas terrorism and death chants to Jews. I never in my wildest imagination would have thought, as a combat veteran of the United States military, that I'd live to see the day that Ronald Reagan's words that we were just one generation away from extinction would actually be coming true. And what is this administration doing about it? Not a damn thing. In fact, Kamala Harris is on record supporting these little homegrown college student terrorists, along with AOC, Rashid Tlaib, Alihan Omar, all the squad members of our Congress supporting these homegrown college student terrorist. And that is absolutely pathetic and about as un-American as it gets. Would like to thank once again Dan Golbert for coming on with us tonight and sharing his personal story. It is through his words that we're able to drive home the importance of this, because he's someone who sadly experienced it and knows firsthand the pain and the agony that is caused by illegal immigration and those that support a wide open border. And that should have never happened. We'll have Maria on at another time, or we will do a pre-recording with her to talk more about the Remembrance Project. Folks, as always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. And I will tell you once again, if you do not know what angel families are, or you do not know what blue and gold star families are, please do the research. They need our support more than ever before, more than at any time in American history, because the administration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are literally pissing on the graves of their loved ones. And that should be the most horrific crime ever committed in this country, is those that don't give a damn about the American citizens that are being destroyed, families being destroyed by these evil dictators in our Congress at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And they're not all Democrats. Sadly, some of them are Republicans as well that just don't give a damn. Take care, everyone. God bless you all. And please remember what we shared with you tonight. And keep in mind that we currently have lots of murderers and rapists and terrorists running around in this country waiting for their next opportunity to rape, murder, and do widespread harm and damage to this country. Thanks to those in Washington, D.C. Good night, my friends. And I'll see you back here Thursday at 8 p.m. Central for another live broadcast. In the description of this show and all my videos, you can see where you can find me on other social media platforms. Please go there, follow me, especially on Rumble, because as we get closer to Election Day, YouTube will tighten the screws just like Facebook is doing to me right now. They've now made it to where I can no longer promote this show on Facebook. And that is as Nazism as it gets, my friends. Sadly. Take care, and I'll see you all on Thursday. Good night.